The Orthodox Catholic Church of Nations implores God for peace and unity to reign in Cameroon and for the protection of the presidential couple, His Excellency Paul Biya and wife Chantal Biya, at the High Mass concelebrated in Yaoundé. The voter registration process, which renders citizens eligible to vote, ends in slightly over a month. Voters' cards at Elections Cameroon branches are in want of collection as ignorance on civic responsibility and voter apathy thrive. Mobile money systems in Cameroon are compromised by unscrupulous individuals who rob subscribers of their funds. Users say the mobile wallet imperils them and blame operators for being in compliance. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Those were the headlines of the 7:30 news.
The wearing of face masks in public places will be mandatory until further notice.
The clergy of the Orthodox Catholic Church of Nations, St. John the Baptist Basilica in Yaoundé, has dedicated special prayers for the presidential couple and for peace to reign in Cameroon. At the concelebrated High Mass today, to mark the feast of St. John the Baptist, they prayed for His Excellency Paul Biya and his wife, Chantal Biya. The head of state was represented by the director of the civil cabinet at the presidency of the Republic, Minister Samuel Vondo-Ayolo. Amin Keng Edward reports.
On arrival at the St. John the Baptist Basilica of the Orthodox Catholic Church of Nations in Yaoundé, the Minister, Director of the Civil Cabinet at the Presidency of the Republic, Samuel Vondo-Ayolo, was welcomed by the Central Regional Governor, Nasiri Paul Biya, and a colleague of priest, at the head of which was His Eminence Matthew de Jesus. Celebrations marking the Feast of Nativity of St. John the Baptist and celebrations during which some apostles of Christ were ordained and integrated into the ranks of deacons and priests of the Orthodox Catholic Church of Nations. His Eminence Matthew de Jesus called on the young priests and deacons to serve with the fear of the Lord and in respect of biblical prescriptions. He told the congregation that as John the Baptist announced and prepared the coming of Jesus Christ for a divine mission on earth, so too the Christians as God's disciples are expected to prepare God's place in their lives. The over 40 priests who attended the concelebrated High Mass joined the chief celebrant to dedicate special prayers for the protection of the presidential couple Paul and Chantal Biya, making supplications for peace, unity and solidarity amongst Cameroonians. Before the close of the Mass, a giant photograph of President Paul Biya carrying the cross and the map of Cameroon was presented to his personal representative, a photograph full of symbolism that now occupies a sacred corner of the church to symbolize President Paul Biya's sufferings, his endurance and love for country, and his authority over his country.
Still in religion, Christians of the Église Presbyterian Camerounais Saint Albert Theodonian Parish in Guayaquil have renewed their confidence in their moderator. Reverend Paul Emmanuel Ntap was re-elected today at the end of a presbytery meeting which also saw the transfer of some pastors. Baldwin Summer reports that the moderator committed himself to lead by example.
Reverend Paul Emmanuel Ntap has had confidence renewed in him as he is re-elected as moderator of the St. Albert Theodonian Guayaquil Nathaniel Parish of the Église Presbyterian Camerounais. His achievements in this parish worked to his advantage as he looks forward to doing better during this stewardship. During the presbytery sitting, other pastors were transferred to meet objectives in different congregations.
This meeting was to post pastors in parishes. We send new pastors in parishes, and we think that this movement will bring new development in that different parishes, and we are very happy and glad to see what he is doing here.
Sunday's service was presided over by Reverend Dr. Jacques Sapp, moderator of the Yaoundé Presbytery, who called on the Christians to be exemplary in the different communities.
our top stories, the registration on the electoral roll as stipulated by the law is expected to end on August 31. Barely weeks to go, the enrollment exercise is quite timid at the ELECAM council branches across the nation. In Yaoundé, some councils are yet to record a dozen prospective voters for registration or for the collection of their voters' cards. Ewana Epole tells us more.
The Electoral Board of Cameroon, in the month of April 2020, after the municipal and parliamentary elections, resumed the registration process on the electoral list. But due to the coronavirus pandemic, activities at the council branches are said to be timid.
Since the start of the revision in Yaoundé 2, we have registered 10 new electors, and for the voters' card redrawal, we have distributed more than 35.
Meanwhile, at the ELECAM council branches of Yaoundé 1 and 7, they have each enrolled only 10 eligible voters, and about 15 persons have collected their cards. According to officials of Elections Cameroon, it is expected that more potential voters will register and also retrieve their voting cards before the end of the operation for this year.
The importance of voter registration cannot be undermined, as it is the only component that renders individuals eligible to participate in an election. It is intended to ensure that everyone entitled to vote can do so, prevents ineligible persons from voting, and guard against multiple voting. Unfortunately, in Cameroon, voter apathy deprives citizens from choosing their own leaders. Muki Edwin Kinzike looks at how vital it is to get enrolled.
To qualify to decide who leaders in Cameroon are, from the local councils through the National Assembly and the Presidency of the Republic, one needs to be a registered voter. That means he or she must have registered on voters' list to confirm eligibility to vote. Voters' list enable election management bodies to differentiate between those who accept to perform their democratic rights and those who do not. By confirming that voters have met all eligibility requirements, the voters' list help confer legitimacy on the electoral process. Conversely, the legitimacy of the process will immediately be called into question if there are problems with the registration of voters. Voter registration is therefore one of the most important tasks of election administration. Unfortunately, just about 7 million of the expected 16 million potential voters registered in the last presidential, National Assembly and local elections in Cameroon. Those who did not register simply did not decide who their managers are. Those who will make the decisions in the future are those that are registered now.
Away from the importance of voter registration, mobile money systems in Cameroon are currently faced with some woes as users decry that they erupt and operators are accused of being accomplices. Even though the mobile wallet prevents individuals from moving around with huge sums of money, many fear that the e-money system has been compromised, exposing them to thieves. Yoti Kalilisong investigates on the issue.
Call it an organized theft and victims will agree.
Once I was contacted by someone who presented himself as a personnel of Orange. He started explaining me things about my account and giving me some details that I recognize, I acknowledge that these were the things I actually did some days ago.
Either they have somebody in MTN or Orange who is giving numbers to people, or somebody who knows me very well.
Sending text messages of either mobile money or Orange money alerts is how they operate.
A number sent to me that I receive money, that I should refund it.
Their objective is to empty your account if you try to tap the codes they give you.
This tactic usually plays on the receiver's psychology, as it appears so real to be considered a scam.
When it's mobile money, either Orange or MTN Mobile, the sender will be mobile money. When it is an unknown number, I will never look. I will not even put my codes.
Those who have been victims of either Momo or Orange money theft regret the absence of legal action against the perpetrators.
The phenomenon of mobile money transfer theft is attributed to the vulnerability of the cyberspace and oftentimes the ignorance of mobile telephone users. Through usurpation, defamation, blackmail and crookery, subscribers are robbed of their hard-earned wealth. How can these vices be checked? Kilian Datndifon has been finding out.
Statistics from the Central Judicial Investigation Unit of the National Gendarmerie shows that from 2019 to May 2020, about 50,000 complaints were registered on usurpation, crookery, defamation, blackmail and other forms of cyber criminality across the national territory. Scamming using mobile telephones is on the rise.
When a case arises, you can investigate using our technical means and human resources in order to find the people who are doing it.
They also use a software called spyware to extract compromising information from your phone and use to blackmail you. Security forces and the National Telecommunications Regulatory Agency are there for victims of scamming.
Verify with members of your families, with your friends, with all the relationships before sending money to someone you don't know. And then when someone calls you and then has sent money to him, you have to note the number. The person who is victim of electronic abuse should take the complaint to National Gendarmerie's office.
Vigilance is the watchword. Scammers are in the eye of the storm of security forces.
In economic news, the external debt of the Economic and Monetary Committee of Central Africa, CEMAC, currently stands at 27% of their gross domestic product. At a meeting with the International Monetary Fund, CEMAC member states and CEMAC institutions, the macroeconomic framework and the impact of COVID-19 on the sub-region were reviewed. Tonight's Caroline Oke-Anoma comes back to some of the recommendations made.
Shortly after the health crisis was declared, the Ministers of Finance and the Economy of the CEMAC member states suggested that member countries should collectively negotiate the cancellation or the forbearance of their external debts. A debt which stands at 27% of their gross domestic product. To that end, official letters were dispatched on April 5, 2020 to heads of states of some main industrial countries to request the suspension of loan payments, but most of all, the prompt and substantial disbursement of emergency financial assistance. In response, the IMF approved the disbursement of 88 billion CFA francs to Gabon, 55 billion CFA francs to Chad, Cameroon and the Central African Republic were to receive theirs. Meantime, the Development Bank of Central African States dispatched CFA 90 billion francs to each member state to cushion the economic and social impact of COVID-19. During the tripartite video conference in which Professor Daniel Ona-Ondo, chairperson of CEMAC Commission, participated, it was also disclosed that some CEMAC country programs with the IMF had come to an end without concluding the last review of the said programs.
In the Northwest region, actors involved in the execution of the public investment budget in Gokatunja Division have been urged to overcome fear and to execute their work. The head of the follow-up committee for public investment budgets, Honorable Jingo Musa, made the appeal during the evaluation of the projects that has been retarded by the socio-political crisis. Eric Langmia-Wufo tells us more from Bamenda.
Tunja has 13 villages, and in these villages there are still development projects for 2018 and 2019 still pending execution here. The socio-political crisis has halted construction efforts and many to proceed with works.
There is a bit of low key of the investment, and all the whole cause of this has been issue of insecurity. We have to work together and be serious to what we do, be committed, and get these boys know that what they are doing is wrong.
If there are a few miscreants who are working for their individual interests, continue to disturb contractors, continue to disturb engineers, continue to disturb controllers. Therefore, all of us have to go to the field, so that if it is to kill, they should kill all of us.
In 2020, 26 projects out of 27 have already been awarded in the 3 council areas of the division. Stakeholders are also worried with the fact that 48 public schools and 3 private schools have been vandalized by armed secessionist militia.
In spite of the security threats in the southwest region, development projects earmarked for execution in the Limbe City Council were implemented satisfactorily. The assertion was made during an ordinary session of the council to examine the 2019 accounts chaired by the Limbe City Mayor Andrew Mutanga Munchimba. Henry Mikole tells us more.
To go by the mayor of the city of Limbe, Andrew Mutanga Munchimba, out of 9,750,000,000 CFA francs that was to be collected in 2019, the council was only able to collect 5 billion and a little over 71 million CFA francs. The difficulty was attributed to the crisis, the fact that business is generally slow and that business persons are hesitant to pay taxes. In spite of these difficulties, Mr. Mutanga stressed that much was achieved by the municipality in 2019. Amongst other things, water and electricity were extended to several neighborhoods, roads were constructed and some rehabilitated. The city mayor went further to state that equipment was purchased and bills for water, electricity and hygiene and sanitation were settled.
Limbe in the future is poised to compete with Yaoundé, Douala in the cleanest town competition.
He equally used the occasion to warn business persons that the council will no longer stomach their attitude of respecting ghost towns on Monday, that sanctions will follow.
We should bear in mind that negligence by a single individual can seriously harm the entire community.
The mandatory wearing of face masks in all public places and the respect for physical distancing are still to be applied, especially in leisure parks. In the nation's capital, Yaoundé, regardless of measures taken by some operators, visitors still ignore the prescriptions. Romeo Kenyi now paints a vivid picture of what obtains in some of these playgrounds.
An almost deserted playground here at the Awai neighborhood in Yaoundé. Only one family has turned out for leisure. Business has been timid since the inception of COVID-19. Management says off camera. The scenario is different this other way. Over 50 kids, accompanied by parents, are welcome on weekends.
All the workers, the ushers, they are all with their mask.
At least 2 children are permitted to enter a vehicle. Just like I am here alone, no other person is permitted to sit in this particular vehicle.
At the Awai Eco Park, it's a convivial atmosphere that prevails. The discovery of diverse protected species is the greatest revelation. But the little use of face mask is a cause for concern.
Before entering here, we have first of all to wash our hands.
Owners of these leisure parks have promised to keep sensitizing visitors on barrier measures till COVID-19 bows out.
Still on COVID-19, public health experts and mental health specialists are encouraging all who have persons with symptoms of the coronavirus or those who have tested positive and are still at home to take them to hospitals. This comes after it has been realized that many persons rely on self-medication and on unorthodox treatment. Baldwin Sama is at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center and with his guest Simon Ezwenu talk about the necessity to get proper treatment. Hello, Baldwin.
Good evening to you, Esther Kim, and welcome to the Public Health Emergency Operations Center, where the fear factor remains a hard nut to crack for public health experts and equally mental health specialists, given that they have discovered that many families who have persons who have been tested positive for COVID-19 prefer to keep these persons at home for these persons to be treated at home rather than sending them to the different specialized treatment centers for them to get treated appropriately. And that is why public health experts are discouraging these actions by most families in the 10 different regions of the country, encouraging them to take their patients to the specialized treatment centers for them to get treated of COVID-19. That is what we shall be discussing with Simon Ezwenu, a mental health specialist, this evening. Good evening, Simon.
Good evening, Badwin Sama.
What accounts for this increase in the number of families who prefer to have their persons tested positive for COVID-19 treated at home rather than in the hospitals?
Based on the context in which we are living now regarding to the COVID-19, we have to consider taking our family member COVID patient to the treatment center as a positive attitude that we need to adopt once tested positive, if we have to save our positive patients or to protect our life and those around us.
And what measures have been put in place by the Ministry of Public Health to ensure that these practices are discouraged and families take these persons who are tested positive to these specialized treatment centers? Just in line in the instruction of the Minister of Public Health, is putting in place different sites of treatment centers, all for the COVID-19 patients. We have still seen some people, individuals, that goes against these instructions due to fear of being infected or losing their loved one in the hospital because of the false informations and rumors that we all have seen all over the nation. And they should know that doing so, they are putting their own life and the one of their COVID patient in risk and on the one of the nation. So we are here to inform them that the Minister of Public Health has put so many measures in order to encourage us to take our positive patients to the treatment centers, such as we have adapted and proper treatment centers that have been put in all the regions. We have the medical teams that are there 24/24, for any positive case for medical support. We also have even the sensitization team that are there working all over all communities with collaboration with the community leaders to sensitize and on taking the positive patient to the treatment centers. We cannot even pass around the 1510 that are doing their work, and also the psychology people that are there to encourage the population that this sickness is it's just like any other flus, and many have been cured from it. So they have to take their positive patient to the treatment center. Thank you so much, Simon Eziono, for being available as a guest this evening. The take-home message from here is that COVID-19 is real, and we must all respect these barrier measures put in place by the government of Cameroon so as to limit the number of persons tested positive for COVID-19 in Cameroon. Back to you, Esther Kima.
Thank you very much, Baldwin Sammer. If you're COVID-19 positive, you can beat it if you get appropriate medical attention in specialized centers. In education, candidates of the French technical examination, the Certificat d'aptitude professionnelle CAP, begin sitting the exams tomorrow. In the majority of sub-centers in Yaoundé, officials have ensured that the tests are done in an environment safe from the coronavirus. Victor Sige reports on something to protect candidates and their invigilators.
The Government Technical High School Ngwaikele and the Government Bilingual Technical High School Nsam are some of the writing centers for the Certificat d'aptitude professionnelle CAP to begin on Monday. Stringent measures are being put in place to ensure candidates take the examination hitch-free.
We already classified the students 24 per class. We'll start receiving students at 7 o'clock.
Few students have been visiting the different accommodation centers to check up their writing halls, appreciate the dispositions.
I am here to locate my hall and my examination number for tomorrow. I am ready for tomorrow, and with the good measures put in place by the school authority, I am now 100% ready.
The two centers will host 77 and 310 candidates, respectively. As the countdown narrows to hours, the writing centers appear set to receive candidates.
Internally displaced persons in Mozogo in the Far North region are benefiting from the assistance of government and non-governmental organizations to carry out agro-pastoral activities. Defense and security forces in the area have been joined by an NGO, Premier Urgence, to ensure the economic and social insertion of the people in a secured environment. Ayok John Ashu tells us more.
A few years back, some ex-Boko Haram associates voluntarily laid down their weapons after turning their backs on the barbaric sect. Today, they are now trying to live normal lives again at the Committee on Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration's Transit Center in Meri, far north Cameroon. The Chief Executive Officer of the region, Mijiawa Bakari, paid a visit to this center and saw for himself how well the 155 ex-fighters are adapting as well as their challenges.
Ex-Boko Haram who are here, we've seen with delegate of Minader and Minepia how to accompany those ex-Boko Haram. And the chief of Godola grant hectare at their disposal.
He also enjoined the traditional authorities to help these former Boko Haram associates to carry out activities like farming, rearing, tailoring, amongst others. Governor Mijiawa Bakari also checked on students sitting the baccalaureate examination and the effectiveness of the Keep Meri Clean campaign during his visit.
In politics, the CPDM political family in Nyong and Fumu have comforted each other in the face of difficult economic and health challenges. This was during a two-day tour of the constituency by Honorable Roger Nkododang and Honorable Catherine Mbala Ngombo Fula, who updated the electorate on their work and the threat posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Fonka Mutabo Bena tells us more.
Touring the 5 councils of the Nyong and Fumu division of the Central Region, Honorable Roger Nkododang thanked the voters who re-elected him 5 months ago and briefed them on the impact COVID-19 tax exonerations is having on the economy. Like most of the country, the economy of the Nyong and Fumu is feeling the strain of the COVID-19 pandemic, despite recording no cases yet. But for the seasoned politician, this is first about comfort.
If people take precaution, it will be very good. If all this population died, politically we cannot move. So I think the first thing is to tell them the truth. This pandemic is the reality over the world.
Traveling southeastern localities like Akonolinga, Ayos, Endom, Mengang, and Kopdombo, the MP staged light rallies involving mostly CPDM grassroots leaders and traditional rulers, echoing the message of solidarity. Foodstuff, face masks, and party gadgets were doled out, encouraging the party to remain active despite the times.
On a sad note, the late former director of the Advanced School of Mass Communication and one-time director of information in CRTV, Professor Marc-Joseph Ongba, has been laid to rest in his native Zoasel in the Central Region. He's been described as an icon and model in the university community, a discreet and efficient worker, and a committed Christian. Ebenezer Akanga attended the funeral and now reports.
The burial ceremony of the late Professor Marc-Joseph Ongba began with traditional rites that saw the performance of his sani. The traditional rites were followed by a requiem mass with the Bishop Emeritus of Mbarmayo, Adalbenjana, as chief celebrant. On behalf of the head of state, the senior divisional officer of Mefu Anakono decorated him posthumously with the Medal of Commander of the National Order of Valor. 9 eulogies were presented at the burial ceremony. Among the eulogies were that of the Minister of State, Minister of Higher Education, read by Professor Manasseh Aboya, that of the Director General of CRTV, read by Ibrahim Sherif, and that of his children. All the eulogies pointed to the fact that the late Professor Marc-Joseph Ongba was an icon and model of a university lecturer, a committed Christian, and a caring father.
I learned from him how to manage collaborators, how to deal with the hierarchy.
Professor Marc-Joseph Ongba died on the 23rd of June 2020 in Yaoundé at the age of 72.
And that will be all for this edition of the 7:30 News, in which you heard that the Orthodox Catholic Church of Nations has implored God for peace and unity to reign in Cameroon and for the protection of the presidential couple, His Excellency Paul Biya and wife Chantal Biya. More news comes up at 8:30 p.m. with Atabadin Omar. I'll be back next weekend, God willing. Meantime, have an accomplished week and stay safe from the coronavirus. Good night.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.
CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.